So everything that has been going on for the past 2 years, and when you get things like laid off, your health, your wealth, everything falls to shambles. What do you do like an avoidant person? You run away from the world. And like Rose Less 88 says, bro, you need to go overseas and travel. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm gonna walk you through the exact journey of how I spent practically 60 days in Vietnam. I'm gonna walk you through the extraneous 3 days of nonstop flights that I had to endure, what that was like, and walking you through the process of what it's actually like to get in the country. Because now it's pretty normal now. And the purpose behind it was to really take a step back and look at myself and figure out what is it that I am, who do I want to be, and can I even find myself through this journey? I'll tell you that at the very end of this video. I'm going to talk to you about how much money I've spent, what was the overall currency, and the things that I did to get scammed. So before I even packed my bags, one of the things I needed to do was to figure out the logistics of getting to the actual country itself. So what I had to do was I had to take a layover from Japan into Narita. And there I made a little pit stop looking at things like me, first time ever, trying their coffee vending machines, as well as having
Right now
ramen
I
in
am
the food
in
court for the very first time.
Narita. That only took like 8 hours.
I had pretty much an 8 hour layover. I took a nap there in Narita. And then on this trip, I had to take a little layover in Hanoi as well. What happened in Hanoi was pretty frightening as well because the minute I stepped off the airport, I had to go to the domestic terminal from going from Hanoi to Saigon, as well as pretty much having 3 days of flights. I was pretty delirious. So what happened was I had to go to the international terminal going into the domestic terminal, and from there I had to take a shuttle bus to that. On my way to the shuttle bus, I saw it was 2 a.m. and I saw this random car and a bike pulled over, two shirtless guys, and they were fighting. And I'm like, okay, I am not in the motherland anymore. I am actually in my motherland right now. So, one of the greatest things when it comes to traveling is that it always gets me out of my own perspective. Because sometimes as humans, we are always in these certain habits, hamster wheels. And the minute that you go out somewhere and you realize, wait, there's a completely different life and world that I haven't seen, as well as gives me perspective on life. But one of the things coming from my own Vietnamese background is I always come from a place of fear and scarcity. And this comes to my own family members when they're telling me, hey, you should be warned, right? Do not go. It's scary. You don't want to live there. And one of the things for me, I am a born rebel. Knowing what I wanted to do and following my intuition, even if it's against certain people's safety and concerns, I would rather live a very short life doing the things that I wanted to do than live a long life full of misery and guilt and resentment. And traveling to Vietnam was one of the things that I always felt home in. But going through this trip and experience, I realized a couple things right off the bat. So one of the positive experience of going to another country and me being from a Western world is that the dollar goes a long way. Because me coming from Vancouver, you're looking at anywhere from two to three to $4,000 a month just on living expenses alone. Where with that sort of budget, going using that currency exchange, going there, you can spend a lot more and you have a lot more fun. I spent a lot of my time boozing it up, to be honest,
Mọi người qua mình không được thấy nhạc vui hôm nay nhưng mà em hơi xin lỗi I'm so sorry but
and just really learning to enjoy life because for so long I was in this mindset I had to hustle, I had to grind, and never learned growing up as a kid to just ease off a bit and just relax. And because, like I said, when you don't make a decision in life, life will make one for you. You get fired, certain things happen, things are out of your control, but what you can control is your own actions. And sometimes life was just like, Peter, you just got to chill out right now. And that's what I did. I learned for the first time to not really need to document every single thing. I didn't need to, in my head, I'm going to become a Vietnamese travel vlogger. But going through this entire process and eating great Vietnamese food, what I realized was that home is not necessarily Vietnam for me. And all the time that I've been running away from and figuring out, hey, if I don't really have roots out here in Vancouver, if I just run away, am I essentially just running away from my problems? And essentially, what I needed to do was look deep within me. But before that, I'm going to talk about exactly how I got scammed. So if you are living or want to go to Vietnam, there's a couple things that you need to be worried of, right? One is, yes, there are random petty theft and crime and snatch and grabs. You can't go around holding your phone like a damn tourist. That's something you do not want to do. The next thing is their note or their currency. If it gets ripped, you can't exchange that. One of the things that I had to deal with is that I didn't know that coming from Canadian currency, if it's crumpled, it's ripped, whatever, people will take it. But in Vietnam, if it's just a little tear, you look at this and you're like, it's just a little tear. No big deal. Wrong country. It is a freaking big, big deal. Pretty much equates to, you see these numbers? Pretty much like that. Zero. And I did not know that. So I hope whoever's watching this will learn one of those lessons. This is my third or fourth time now going to Vietnam, and I feel pretty comfortable in there. Yes, there are horrible things, and people always warn me, but it's like what I learned as a immigrant kid at a young age is that sometimes you need to not listen to people and trust your own gut and instinct and do what you wanted to do.
Dễ đầy đủ hả em?
Okay. My entire life, since I was a kid, no one really supported me. I had to support myself. I had to have my own intuition and my gut instinct. And sometimes when your entire childhood, you're gaslit, you have a sense of who or whatever it is that you want to do. It's just dampened and shallowed by all the outside voices around you. And when I solo traveled, yes, it gets lonely. Yes, you might want to have a friend there, which definitely helps. But what you ultimately realize is that you have total control no matter what your circumstances is. And initially, I went on this trip to have aspirations of like, hey, if I were to live here for a bit, what would it be like? You need to test drive the car until before you actually buy it. It's the same thing that I applied for this. And what I realized is that going to another country was not going to solve my problems or my own issues. Like I said, my giant goes wherever I go. My issues that I have or my insecurities go wherever I go. And just because I go to another place, it does not mean that I'm going to solve all my demons. It does not mean I'm going to suddenly just figure life out. I need to sit down with myself and have a concrete plan of this is how it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, then I can modify things along the way. And going on this trip, it was very good and bad in the sense where I felt like one, same feelings apply to me, where people were questioning, what are you doing? Why are you going? And when it comes to having external factors, it doesn't matter. But if they're immediate members, they have a little bit more weight and push and pull. But at the end of the day, I needed to do something for me because my entire life I was always thinking about others. And this dictated a lot of the things that I made in life, my life decisions, my career, relationships. And the minute I realized that, wait, right, I can do whatever it is that I want. And one of my craziest dreams was to go to Vietnam. When you're young or even in your early 20s, you're always about, yeah, we gotta travel. I gotta go travel the world, man. I gotta do this and that. But the reality is like traveling is an expense, it's not an asset. And in the back of my head is like, my big ass head is that I need to figure out some way to make money online so that I too don't need to be dependent in a location based setting, which would then in turn allow me to travel to Vietnam. I learned a bit about the history and things that were going on in Vietnam. I really looked and dived into my culture. I ate really good food and experienced the whole different life and the certain privilege that I had coming from a Western country going to places like Vietnam. What I did realize was that this was not the answer to my problems. Going to a certain destination was just a form of escapism from my own troubles and what I was trying to connect with and do. And for me, creating content comes from a place where it doesn't come from shame, right? It doesn't come from a place where a family member is watching my videos and concerning and wants to have control over what I should or should not do. It should come from a place of me being my most authentic self. And I'm going to walk you through that journey of how I rediscover and reset my life again. And figuring out all the things and obstacles. Because the more I figure it out myself, yes, I have to take a step back and figure out who or what that person is. And will I be behind in life? Of course, right? But in the long run, I'm betting on myself to make the right decisions moving forward. I know this video was all over the place, but that was my experience of spending practically 2 months within Vietnam. And it comes to how much I spent. I spent around, you're looking at $2,000 a month. This includes accommodation and food. And for $2,000 a month, you're looking at $24,000, $30,000 a year. You are pretty comfortable living in Vietnam, right? That's another thing that was kind of mind blowing. Where in Vancouver, you're looking at spending 30,000 plus 40,000 just to live, meaning you need to make double that to have a little bit of spending. So you need to be making 6 figures alone to live in this city, which is another reason why it gives me more of this pull towards Southeast Asia. But yeah, that was my video for this. I know it's all over the place. I technically made 2 trips. Combine that was 2 weeks, 2 months, and in the next video, I'll be explaining how, your boy just turned the big 3-0 and, I'm still down on myself sometimes, but I'm slowly, figuring out life. But sometimes ignorance is bliss,